The storm didn't arrive with thunder. It came quietly, like a decision made too late. Samuel Carter stood near the single fence line that cut his land in two, his gloved hands resting on weathered wood. Snow drifted sideways under a dull December sky, and the old oak tree at the edge of the pasture creaked with a sound that felt older than winter itself. The curved dirt path beyond the fence disappeared into mist, bending toward a horizon that refused to glow. Christmas was 3 days away. The barn behind him was full of tools, a plow that hadn't turned enough soil, a seed bag still half full from last spring, a lantern that had been lit more from habit than from hope. Samuel had not stopped working. That was the cruelest part. His discipline remained, steady as frost, yet his productivity had thinned, season by season, until effort no longer produced fruit. A rope dragged behind his boots as he walked, stiff with ice scraping the frozen ground. He hadn't noticed it slipping from his hand. Lately, small things escaped him. Measurements misjudged, hours wasted, plans started and never finished. His leadership over the land felt uncertain, his focus scattered like chaff in a cold wind shift. Near the water trough, a young calf stood unnaturally still. Animals always knew before men did. Samuel felt it then, not panic, but a tightening in the chest, a warning without words. He looked toward the farmhouse window glowing faintly through the snowfall. Rebecca was inside. Hannah too. Warmth waited there. Gratitude should have followed. Instead, doubt pressed in. He whispered a prayer he'd prayed before, one without eloquence, just a request for clarity, for direction, for his long-term vision to return before winter took more than it already had. The wind shifted again, colder now. The path ahead remained unclear. The oak tree stood firm, but Samuel did not feel the same stability within himself. And though this moment felt like the beginning of the end, it didn't start there. We must go back a little in time. 3 months earlier, autumn had still clung gently to the land. Back then, the same curved dirt path carried color instead of snow, its edges lined with fallen leaves and softened light. Samuel Carter woke before sunrise each morning, as he always had, pulling on his working gloves while the house remained quiet. The rhythm of rural life had shaped him for decades, feed first, then fences, then fields. Discipline was not something he struggled to summon. It lived in his bones. But even then, something subtle was already slipping. He would stand beneath the old oak tree at the edge of the pasture, coffee steaming in his hand, staring toward the horizon as if waiting for instruction. The land looked the same. The seasons obeyed their order, yet his clarity no longer came with the morning light. Tasks blurred together. Priorities lost their weight. He worked hard, but not wisely. Productivity failure doesn't announce itself loudly. It arrives disguised as routine, Rebecca noticed first. "You're doing everything," she said one evening, as they sat at the worn wooden table. "But nothing seems to be moving forward." Samuel didn't argue. He couldn't. Leadership required honesty, and integrity demanded he name what was happening, even if he didn't understand why. His sense of purpose felt thin, stretched across too many unfinished intentions. Discipline remained, but direction had begun to drift. Hannah would watch him from the porch as he repaired the same fence section twice in 1 week. The fence stood straight, but it symbolized something deeper. Boundaries maintained without progress beyond them. Stability without growth. In the mornings, mist would lift slowly from the fields, revealing soil that looked ready but somehow resistant. He would hitch the plow, guide it carefully, only to stop midway, uncertain if this was the right place to begin. Strategic thinking once came naturally to him. Now, decisions felt heavier than they should. One afternoon, Samuel paused along the path, noticing how it curved gently instead of running straight. His father had once told him, "A wide path still requires intention, or it becomes wandering." The memory settled uncomfortably. At night, Samuel offered quiet prayers, not for more work, but for focus, for clarity, for the discipline he still had to reconnect with purpose. He thanked God for provision, for family, for land that still waited patiently. Gratitude was present. Insight, however, remained just out of reach. By the time the first frost touched the ground, Samuel sensed it clearly. His effort was no longer aligned with his long-term vision. And winter, he knew, had a way of revealing what men avoided naming. Samuel's dream had never been loud. It didn't involve expansion, new machinery, or numbers that impressed neighbors. His long-term vision was quieter than that, steadier. He wanted the land to remain whole, productive without being exhausted, a place where his children would always know the meaning of responsibility and stewardship. He believed leadership began with care, not control. On Sundays after church, Samuel would often walk the property alone. He carried a seed bag, even when it wasn't time to plant, more a reminder than a necessity. Each field held memory. His father's voice correcting a grip on the plow, his mother calling from the porch as evening settled in. The old oak tree stood as it always had, wide and rooted, reminding him that legacy wasn't rushed. One late afternoon in early October, Samuel stopped near the tree and sat on a low stump. The sky was clear, the horizon pale with promise. Still water rested in the trough nearby, reflecting the light without disturbance. It was one of those moments that invited honesty. He bowed his head, resting his elbows on his knees. The prayer was quiet, not urgent, not desperate. "Help me see again," he said. "Not just what needs doing, but what matters most." That was the heart of his dream. Clarity aligned with purpose, not endless motion, but intentional living, not working harder, but leading better. He wanted his productivity to serve something eternal, not just survive another season. As he sat there, a subtle insight surfaced. He realized his focus had narrowed to tasks alone. The vision behind them, the why, had faded. He had been measuring success by exhaustion instead of fruitfulness. Discipline had become routine, stripped of direction. The thought didn't accuse him, it instructed him. Samuel breathed deeply, feeling a momentary peace settle. Emotional maturity often arrives not with answers, but with better questions. He stood, adjusted the seed bag on his shoulder, and walked back toward the house as the sun dipped lower. For a few days after, his steps felt lighter. He reorganized his mornings, chose fewer tasks with greater intention, and even allowed himself to rest when evening came. It felt like a small transformation had begun. But purpose, once weakened, doesn't restore itself all at once. And winter was already approaching, bringing with it a deeper test than Samuel yet understood. Winter arrived earlier than expected. The soil hardened almost overnight, locking the fields beneath a pale crust of frost. Samuel stood with the plow hitched behind the tractor, boots planted firmly, breath rising in short clouds. Frozen ground had a way of refusing cooperation. It mirrored what he felt inside. At first, he pushed harder. He woke earlier, stayed out later, tightened his schedule until there was no space left for reflection. Discipline became his shield again, but without clarity, it began to work against him. Tasks stacked up, decisions slowed, strategic thinking dulled under fatigue. The rope he used for hauling feed dragged behind him more often now, snagging on frozen ruts. He would stop, untangle it, mutter to himself, and continue. Small delays, repeated daily, quietly eroded momentum. Productivity didn't collapse in a single moment, it leaked away. The fence line near the north pasture finally gave way after a night of heavy wind. One post leaned just enough to matter. Samuel repaired it alone, hammer echoing into the stillness, each strike landing heavier than necessary. Boundaries held, but barely. Integrity cost him time he didn't feel he had. Inside the barn, the lantern cast uneven light. Shadows stretched longer than they should have. Samuel reviewed lists he'd written weeks earlier, crossing off items that no longer felt relevant. His long-term vision seemed distant now, dimmed beneath the weight of constant adjustment. Focus fractured, inner strength thinned. Even prayer became shorter, not absent, just rushed. He thanked God out of habit, asked for help out of responsibility, but rarely lingered long enough to listen. Emotional maturity doesn't fail loudly either. It fades when silence feels inefficient. One evening, as a bitter wind cut across the fields, Samuel noticed how the oak tree absorbed the storm without resistance. It didn't rush. It didn't bend unnecessarily. It simply stood. The contrast unsettled him. He leaned against the tractor, hands trembling, not from cold, but from the growing fear that his effort no longer mattered. That productivity failure had become part of his identity rather than a season to navigate. The thought was heavy. Christmas lights began appearing in distant farmhouses along the road, signs of celebration, of completion. Samuel felt behind, stalled in a season that refused to move forward. And as the days shortened, so did his patience. The real danger wasn't exhaustion. It was the quiet belief that this was as far as he would go. The offer came wrapped in practicality. Mark Ellison arrived on a grey afternoon, his truck clean despite the mud, his boots too new for the season. He leaned casually against the fence line, studying Samuel's land with practiced eyes. Mark was known for results, fast ones. He expanded quickly, spoke confidently, and always seemed one step ahead of timing. "You've got good ground," Mark said. "You're just not using it efficiently." Samuel didn't respond right away. Animals in the pasture shifted uneasily. They sensed what men often ignored. Mark continued, lowering his voice. "I can help. Lease part of the backfield to me for the winter. I'll handle the workload, cut you a check, and you can breathe again." It sounded reasonable. Strategic, even. Productivity without pressure, convenience disguised as wisdom. The first escalation came a week later. Mark returned with papers already prepared. He pointed to numbers, projections, timelines. His language was smooth, persuasive. He framed the agreement as stewardship, but it leaned heavily toward control. Samuel noticed clauses that shifted long-term responsibility away from him, boundaries blurred under polite phrasing. "You don't need to carry everything," Mark said. "Leadership means knowing when to let others take over." The words lingered. Samuel knew leadership also meant discernment. Still, fatigue made clarity harder to grasp. His productivity had been failing. The temptation was real. That night, Samuel walked the curved path under a moonlit sky. The fence line cast long shadows across the snow. Integrity often shows up when no one is watching, demanding a decision that costs more than it comforts. The second escalation came unexpectedly. Mark began spreading quiet opinions in town, nothing overt, just enough. Suggestions that Samuel was falling behind, that the farm was struggling, that change might be inevitable. The pressure sharpened. Rebecca noticed the shift immediately. "He's rushing you," she said simply. "God's timing doesn't rush." Those words steadied Samuel more than she knew. He reviewed the papers again by lantern light. Productivity failure had made him vulnerable, but moral courage required him to separate season from identity. Selling direction for relief would not restore purpose. It would erase it. The next morning, Samuel met Mark by the fence. "I'm not signing," Samuel said calmly. "Not like this." Mark smiled thinly. "You'll regret waiting." Samuel shook his head. "I'd regret losing integrity more." The wind shifted then, sudden and cold, carrying away Mark's confidence with it. He left without another word. Samuel stood alone afterward, heart heavy but steady. Responsibility often feels lonelier than compromise, yet something inside him settled. He didn't know it yet, but injustice had just overreached. And ambition, when unchecked by character, always collapses under its own weight. Mark Ellison's success unraveled quietly, the same way it had grown. Within weeks, word began to travel along the same rural routes he once dominated with confidence. A rushed expansion, overleased land, equipment stretched too thin. His numbers had looked impressive, but they were built on speed, not stewardship. A winter storm exposed everything. Heavy snow collapsed a poorly reinforced structure on one of Mark's newer properties. Livestock scattered, losses mounted. Contracts he relied on were delayed or withdrawn entirely. The productivity he boasted about could not survive pressure without integrity beneath it. Samuel heard about it from a neighbor while repairing a gate. He felt no satisfaction, only a sober clarity. This was not revenge. It was consequence. Character had outlasted cleverness, just as it always did. As Samuel worked, he noticed how his own fence line still stood straight, each post set with care. It hadn't been the fastest work, it hadn't been impressive, but it held. Boundaries maintained with patience had preserved stability. That evening, Samuel paused near the old oak tree, snow resting on its branches like quiet approval. He whispered a prayer, not of relief, but of gratitude. He thanked God for protection he hadn't recognized at the time, for guidance that came through restraint rather than reward. Yet his own productivity had not fully returned. The fields were still frozen, the numbers still tight, the fatigue still real. Obedience had preserved him, but breakthrough had not yet arrived. Waiting, Samuel realized, was also part of leadership. Winter had not finished teaching him, and Christmas was drawing near. The storm that ended winter did not look dramatic at first. It came late on Christmas Eve, rolling in softly from the west. Snow fell steady but light, and the wind, which had tormented the fields for weeks, shifted direction, gentler now, almost intentional. Samuel noticed it immediately. Years on the land had taught him that a wind shift often meant change. He stepped outside just before dawn, working gloves pulled tight, breath slow and measured. The horizon surprised him. Where winter skies had remained dull for weeks, a golden line of light now rested just above the fields, faint but unmistakable. Sunrise at Christmas carried a different weight, not celebration, but promise. Near the barn, the young calf he had worried about days earlier stirred and rose without struggle. Its stance was steady, calm. Animals always knew. Samuel felt something loosen in his chest. As the light grew, he walked the curved path, boots crunching over snow that no longer felt hostile. The land looked the same, yet everything felt aligned again, not rushed, not delayed, just timed. He reached the oak tree and stopped. Silence surrounded him. No urgency, no noise, just stillness deep enough to receive insight. That was when it happened. A neighbor's truck approached slowly, tires careful on the road. It was an older man Samuel respected, someone known for patience, not impulse. He stepped out and spoke plainly. "I heard you turn down Ellison," he said. "I also heard your land held when others didn't." He paused, then continued. "I'm stepping back next season. I want someone steady to manage part of my operation. Long term, no rush." The words landed gently, but their impact was immediate. This wasn't rescue, this was restoration. Opportunity aligned with integrity, productivity returned through partnership, not pressure. The work ahead would be meaningful, sustainable, and rooted in stewardship. Exactly what Samuel had prayed for months earlier. Samuel didn't answer right away. He looked once more toward the horizon, now fully lit. He understood then what winter had been teaching him. Breakthrough didn't come when he worked harder. It came when he waited rightly. He bowed his head, gratitude steady and full, not loud, not performative. And in that quiet moment, Samuel remembered a truth the countryside had always known. God never arrives late. The storm had passed, the wind had changed, and clarity had returned, right on time. The countryside teaches its deepest truths slowly. It teaches that productivity without purpose only exhausts the soul, and discipline without direction eventually loses its strength. It reminds a man that leadership is proven not when outcomes are easy, but when integrity is chosen in seasons that offer no immediate reward. Those who honor boundaries preserve more than land. They preserve clarity. Those who wait with faith discover that delay is often protection wearing a different face. And those who remain steady through winter are the ones trusted with growth when the ground softens again. Often, God strengthens a man before he blesses him. And when the blessing comes, it arrives quietly, aligned, complete, and right on time.